Welcome back, folks. My name is JJ Reynolds here at Better Than Data, and we are going to be talking about using a data prep tool to build our Foresight lead generation system. We've been working our way through this, having multiple different methods of doing so. We've talked about using the GA4 API connector. We've talked about paid tools. We use 2-minute reports. And as well as Google Sheets using mixed analytics, probably the most budget-friendly of the paid tools. And so right now we are going to hop into using another tool called Analytics Canvas that is going to reach into BigQuery and format our queries for us. So this is just a quick little show and tell on how you can do that. This is what we are working through. So we've done the connector, the different sections. This report, by the way, is listed down below in the description. So here you can have the native connector, right? We've got this one locked and loaded. It more or less tells everything. It takes a second to load because it's not cached in any method. We then have the GA4 API plus the mixed analytics, which is pretty much instantaneous, and then you can select anything here. So it's pretty snappy. If we select one or the other, bada bing, bada boom, updated every single day. We then have 2-minute reports, which is a little slow because it is caching that data so you don't hit that API limit, right? You don't hit the GA4 API limit, but it takes longer. That's the problem. So here we've got these 3 different methods, and now we're going to talk about Analytics Canvas, okay? And if you have not yet downloaded the LookerStudio cheat sheet, head over to lookerstudio.vip/YouTube, download the cheat sheet. I've heard from 2 people now that they have printed this out and put it next to their computer to go out and whenever they're hitting publish on a report, run through the checklist really quickly, the cheat sheet, and so that they have a standardization for their team. All right, without further ado, let's hop into Analytics Canvas. I want to show you what this looks like. This is the tool, analyticscanvas.com is where it's at. I don't even get an affiliate commission, so if you join, hit the little chat bubble and say JJ Reynolds sent you, because I would love to say, hey, I helped you all out. I'm going to be just, if you look at the pricing of their systems, I just want to make sure we're on this section. We're going to be using this GA4 BigQuery SQL builder. We can write the SQL situation. It just is a pain in the butt to manage, and for lack of better terminology. And I want to show you a low-code solution to doing this for the average marketer, right? Or I guess probably you're an above average marketer if you're watching this video. So I'm going to hop directly into our account. This is what our account looks like. Here you can see this is our demo account for Better Than Data. And we are going to create what's something that's called a canvas. So a canvas, think of it as a drag and drop builder, and we are going to drag and drop some blocks onto it. So I'm going to create a new canvas inside of the US. We're going to call this canvas, I'm going to call this, let's see, LookerStudio YouTube Live GA4 BQ. That is our shorthand, and I'm going to say this is for YouTube. All right, so if you sign up for an account, again, these are canvases. These are all just kind of demo situations. We now have a canvas. What we're going to do next is we're going to drag and drop Google Analytics onto here. This gives you previously all of your previous queries. We're not going to use that. We're going to use this GA4 BigQuery builder, which is currently in beta. So if you have any problems, it's in beta, right? Then we're going to select our actual BigQuery location. So I'm going to use the Data Studio or LookerStudio VIP, which is hard to rename, so we're keeping it as Data Studio. All right. So now we have selected that. Now, what we want to do is we want to build our query. So if you look right here in the middle, you will see the query that is going to be built. I know, it's crazy. And then it's up to us to select what we're going to look for. So I want the date, right? So bam, this is building the actual query in front of our eyes without having to write it. And I am a big fan of not writing SQL if you have not seen my quotes anywhere else. We want the date. We also are going to be looking for the event name. Okay, so this is a little bit controversial here, because when you query for the event name, it's actually querying for all of the things. I'm not talking about query optimization right now. We don't care about that too much. We then are going to look at the traffic sources. Here is a unique thing about this. I need to get my face on here. A unique thing about BigQuery is that because you can have things over multiple days and you can have multiple session source and mediums, you have to decide what the logic is going to be used for that. So what you'll see here, and right above my head, is you will see session first source, session first medium, and session max medium. What the difference of these is, which is super sweet, is it's pulling the first source for that session ID. A little bit convoluted, a little bit complicated, but I'm just going to pull these in for us. We have a source, medium, campaign. I've also asked them for a couple of other dimensions. So because we're in contact with them, if you have any requests for custom dimensions, send them our way. So here's what we've got. We've got those specific fields. We are then going to look for the actual number of sessions, okay? And we're gonna add that here. So now, just so you have an idea, if you're gonna read this in like the actual SQL, is it's looking at all these different fields, right? It's counting them distinct of the session ID, calling that sessions from the entire data source here. It is then doing some prep statements and unnesting all of the events because there is nested events inside of GA4. And then it's creating these prep statements here. And it's actually currently querying both the intraday and normal tables. What we're going to do is we're going to say the daily tables only. So we don't want to look at the actual intraday tables because they can get wild. So basically just building out this giant query, right? We could do it manually. We can kind of step through the process. It just takes a long time to do it. And I'm not a fan of taking a long time to write queries. So now you can hit validate without running. It will say this will take this many bytes. You can Google bytes to gigabytes and their plans, all that jazz. If you hit run query, it's going to then preview that query for us in front of our very own eyes. And done. Okay, there we go. So here we have the event names, the session source, session medium, sessions, etc. That's pretty much all that we need for our report, right? So if we hop back into our LookerStudio report, here we have the session source, session medium, session campaign. Oh, we need the custom parameters, right, of the foresight name, and that is pretty much it. So all I need to add in is that one more parameter of the foresight name. So here, one thing that's really cool is because we name everything, and let me get rid of my head here, fs_name, here we go. We have our foresight name event parameter. We could also add in the foresight type if we'd like to. I'm just going to keep the name to keep it simple. So now you can see here, we've got date, event name, session first medium, session first source, session first campaign, the foresight name, and the number of sessions who have done that. We're going to hit next. And then what we do here is we name this table. So I'm going to call this foresight lead. I'm gonna call this YouTube just so we know that it's for YouTube and I can delete it later. And I'm going to start on December 1st, just because I know this query. Normally what I'd suggest is that you kind of pick a specific start date, and then you only query like about a week of data to test things out. I know what we're going to be working with here, so I'm going to be a little bit more bullish here and go all the way back to December 1st. We are then going to hit submit on this. And this is going to build that query in front of our eyes. So right now you'll see a block show up on the page. And this block is going to say, hey, here is the BigQuery GA4 query. The next thing that we're going to do here is we can add in the ability to summarize things. So here, like this is where I prefer to do this, is where you can actually add in some manipulations. So you can filter things out and then summarize pieces. So let me just add these. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to filter for only our events. So you saw me do this if you watch in the Google Sheets one, which is down below. You could see me putting in these the filter. So I'm going to drag and drop once the query is done and it's built all of these 5,409 rows. We're then going to connect that to this filter. In the filter, I'm just going to simply create a filter of using regex. Oops, 1 second. It just took a second here to do that because it was loading in. So then what we can do is we can create a filter inside of this, which using any of these. So I'm going to use, I think it's regex match. If you double click, it pulls it up. So, oops, no, regex match. We don't want regex extract. Here we go, regex match. Regex match. Okay, we're just going to type it in. Not sure what's happening. It's probably because of the recording here. And then we're going to look for the event name, right? So event name here. Normally you just double click. Oops, double click too many times. Okay. And I'm going to put this here of regex match of when it is the event name contains impression underscore lead with a pipe, or aware underscore lead. Okay. Pipe engage underscore lead pipe and generate underscore lead. All right, so as you can see, we're working through the same kind of logic, just in a different method. And this is also pulling in from BigQuery. So here we should have this. The beautiful part about Analytics Canvas is you can hit validate and it will see if this is a valid query, and then it converts it to SQL for you. Some of these are actual like Sheets functions and other thing else. So here we can look at that. We're then going to go to preview the data just to make sure it's working. There is it pulls in, I believe, 1,000 things. So here, skip generate lead pulled in because it matched that. Aware offer, impression offer did not match, clicks does not match, etc., etc. So it looks like just matched that one, not a problem. Okay. So then what we're going to do is we're going to hit next. Let me just see. Actually, I'm going to get rid of, I don't want to have the skip generate lead. So I'm going to add a caret. I think it's called a caret to all these things, so that we make sure that it starts with each of these statements. Otherwise you end up with those, like the skip generate lead there. So now if we hit validate again, or sorry, data preview, this should then remove those other events that contained it, for example, generate lead. All right, so here you can see false did not match that. These offer ones that did not match. So it's doing all of that correctly. We are off to the races. Ta-da. I'm gonna hit OK. So now we have our filter credentials here. And then we can get rid of this block. I like to, I'm not sure this is best practice on their side of things. I like to put in a calculate field because it's harder to add later. And then you have the ability to kind of look at these, clean things up. For example, the session source, the session medium, the session campaign, all of that jazz, you might want to clean up. So I'll show you what that looks like. So what I'll do is I'll hop on over into our good old SOPs within side of Better Than Data. So here's some of the SOPs that we have specifically for Analytics Canvas for all of our members that we're working on adding to as we kind of move through. But I also want to show you what this looks like. So here, if we go to session first source, right, that's what we're looking for. I want to add a calculation block. I'm just going to paste in that exact thing. So what this is doing is it's matching when it contains Facebook, it's contains Facebook. Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., Google to Google test. I just messing around there. But basically it's cleaning up all of our data. Oh, this is supposed to be YouTube. So YouTube, then YouTube. And so then if we go to data preview, I'll show you what this looks like. Oops. Oh, wait, wrong spot. That's my problem. So instead of syntax, we're going to use the BigQuery standard SQL. Hit OK on that. Paste that in, hit data preview, and now we've got an error because I probably pasted in something that wasn't supposed to be pasted in. All right, 132. Regex contains session first source, Facebook, then Facebook, bada bing, bada boom. This should be working. I don't know why it's not working. Maybe it doesn't like the space. You are seeing it live. So if 132 is no longer the error, we will go from that. All right. Why this is not working is beyond me at the current moment. And I'm going to figure it out. Sorry for the quick jump cut. I just copied and pasted in incorrectly. That was my bad there. So as you can tell, everybody, copy and paste better because don't mess up like I did. So what I did is I just accidentally pasted in the wrong location. So we're just going to retype this in here. So we want to look for the YouTube and the YouTube, right? So now if we hit data preview, this will actually look at the data, use that case statement, run it, clean it on up, and then now we should have a little bit cleaner of let me just find all right, so YouTube here. So for example, this is the expression result for YouTube. And then if we look at the session source, some places, well, not a good example, but it cleans it on up. Okay, so that's the moral of the story. I'm going to call this session underscore source underscore clean and hit OK. Basically just cleans it on up. And one of the reasons why I like using this tool is because we're able to do that much, much better. Okay. Now, moving on, we're going to get rid of this. So that's just show and tell. We then want to connect this into LookerStudio. Okay, so I'm going to create a LookerStudio block that will export it into LookerStudio. I'm going to connect it on up. Okay, so we have our steps, our data preparation into LookerStudio right here. What we need to do now is utilize some of their awesome tools. So here, when I create a Looker report, this is what actually shows up inside of Google Looker Studio. So I'm going to call this the lead FS, lead, YouTube, and that's what we got. We just select the date, and then we're going to add a user. So here I'm going to add hello at betterthandata.com, and I'm going to hit add user. This is going to allow Looker Studio to find this. We then have the option of enabling dimensional caching. This allows you to pre-aggregate things. It's super epic. I'm gonna leave it off for right now just because, actually I'm gonna turn it on because why not? It doesn't matter. So what this is doing is creating an actual table inside of Looker Studio for us to use. It takes a moment for it to kind of do this. 1 second. I've never seen that error before in my life, so we might end up with a small little error here. And why is that showing up? We're going to find out. Write output. Sometimes it will like catch on something. Okay. I don't know what happened there. I just hopped in and just reloaded the page. Nothing crazy happened. All right, so what I did is I reloaded the output here. So what we'll see is what the data will finally look like. And that's what this tab should be. So here is what the data will look like inside of Looker Studio is we have all this information showing up the way that we would like to. And here's also an example of that case statement in action. So if we look at the session clean, youtube.com becomes YouTube, and it standardizes it across the board. So that way we're able to kind of clean things up. And then one better overall step of this is you could actually get rid of that original to even eliminate more fragmentation. So if you got rid of the session first source of here, now you don't have that fragmentation, and it's much easier to do that. And then come back over here, rewrite this output, write output, and now it will give us an error again. Update stub to, so these things are called stubs. You got to rewrite those because they load the data in, and then it actually allows Looker Studio to then finally load in its data. Just a few things, most data prep tools can be a little bit confusing to start using, but this one luckily is at least fairly straightforward once you get the hang of it. And no worries. I just needed to, because I was deleting things and I was pausing the recording, some small things happened. Do not worry. A to Z, we now have our Looker Studio output, 1,400 rows. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hop back into Looker Studio. We're going to make our report using Analytics Canvas. So this is the last step here is we can then create I'm just going to duplicate this tab, right? So here we have the 2-minute reports one. I'm going to click this down here. We're going to hit duplicate. We are then going to come up here and add some data. So this is where things start to get real cool. Is you can look at Analytics Canvas down here. We can then select exactly what we're looking for. So I believe I called it FS GA4 Looker Studio. I think that was it. YouTube, all that jazz. And then you can hit add to continue. Just like the rest of most all connectors, it will default to the name of the connector. So once we hit connect on this, we should be good. And it will give us the name. If we go to resources and manage added data set sources, it should be called Analytics Canvas. So it'll be added in right there. We can just rename this to GA4 F4 site lead Looker Studio bam, or you can name it analytics canvas for the sake of that. Okay, here are all of our individual fields, right? Hit done, hit close, and now we can do what we've done before, and we can change these out. So I'm going to get rid of the data tab. We're going to select this. I'm going to right click it, just like we did have done previously. Select all of the charts with this data on this page. We're then going to hop it into our GA4 analytics canvas, right? Bada bing, bada boom. And then this is not a problem. It's because we simply don't have the information there. So here we have session source, and because there's filters on this, we just have to remove those filters because they don't apply anymore, right? So that is just what you want to think about, is making sure you don't panic when things happen. We then want to come down here, and these are all the blended data sources. So the question is how do you get these kind of impression aware engage pieces in order? Well, how you do that is much more complicated. So because we have impression aware engage and we know that those are all multiples on the page, how we can do that is we can swap this over into the GA4 active campaign here. We can then change this to our FS name. We can just rename this to Foresight. Okay. And because each individual one is looking at these sessions, what we can do is we can actually create little fields here of if, right? So if the event name, right? If event name equals impression underscore lead, right? Then return sessions. So here we're actually creating a small condition of like, when this is true, do this, otherwise return 0. So now we have this like calculation that's happening here at the session level, and we can hit apply, and that will give us just that individual piece. So we could call this, for example, impressions. And just for the sake of simplicity, we can get rid of the conversion rate down here, so then everything shows up. We can do the same exact thing of, there we go, impressions of 245 during this time range. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come into this thing, and we're just going to make that for all of them. So again, if you're following along with the Foresight system, what we can do is add these fields because it's in BigQuery. We are creating these new fields as impression, right? Hit save. And because we're using BigQuery, we can do this, right? And we're using Analytics Canvas, which is basically BigQuery. So we can just come in here, create these new fields, which are just filtering out those things. We could create summary tables inside of Analytics Canvas, but it just gives you less flexibility, in my personal opinion. Okay, impression aware. Here we got engage. And lastly, we want to see generate, right? So that's what we're working on here. Add a field of generate underscore lead. So here, generate. All right. So now we are cooking with bacon, everybody. So now we have our fields, and all we have to do is put those in. And it should just show on up, impression, aware, engage, and generate, all loaded in from the BigQuery GA4 data source. We can do the same thing down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on these, double click. Let's try our double. All right. We've learned that double clicking in Google LookerStudio was not as good as it was in Google Data Studio. So what I'm just going to do in here, I'm just ungrouping these with Command-Shift-G, and then I'm going to right click, and then, man, everything is just being weird today. We are going to right click. No, right. All right, never mind. We're just going to come up here and select our report from this one. Do the same thing. Hey, here we go. And we're just going to change all of these into our GA4 Foresight LookerStudio system. We then come down here and we're going to change these into our impression, aware, engage, generate. And we're gonna do the same thing over, oh, actually, timeout. Oh, I just put these in the wrong order. Man, for some reason, there is a little bit of finicky happening with LookerStudio today. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna delete this, copy this, paste it. Dude, what is happening, everybody? Okay, we now have this copied and pasted over. We're going to move it up to match it there. We're going to change this to the Foresight name. So again, FS name is what it is. I'm going to rename this later, not on this thing, just because it is more time here. And then lastly, we have our leads over time down here. So this is where things can get real spicy, right? Is because we can do the exact same thing of impression, aware, engage, and lastly, generate. And then we can add this feature, this function that we've built, right? So if we want to do generate divided by impressions, all we gotta do is this divided by the impressions. Oopsies. So now we have that conversion rate. It is already set to %. Hit apply. And ta-da, folks, I think we've done it. We now have a report that shares impressions, aware, engage, generate, and etc. And what we're going to need to do now is we need to make sure that we put this as the impressions, because it is BigQuery. So what's actually happening is it's summarizing everything behind the scenes, but we want to use a page view, or in my case, I'm using impression because it's equivalent to a page view. But that allows us to keep everything standard. So theoretically, right, if we go back into view mode, so what I'm going to do, keep this here, looking like we're cooking with some good stuff. Come up to the page. I'm going to rename this to BigQuery Analytics Canvas. Pro tip, as of current, is whenever you click off this, it won't save. Let's see if it saves. Hey, it's saved. Not a pro tip anymore. Okay, so now we've got BigQuery Analytics Canvas here, and what we want to do is give it a little icon. Alrighty, I'm gonna put a heart because why not? So we know Analytics Canvas. Theoretically, if you publish this, right? Oh wait, we need to change this one. This is not even the source. So we got session source clean, session medium. And then lastly, we want the campaign. And again, we can always change these. So session campaign, this would be session medium. And lastly, session source. Alrighty there, folks. And now if we hit publish or not publish, this should be close to what the other reports say. So let's just see how it compares, right? We've got 202 impressions, 73 generate. Let's just make sure that we reset this, that there are no filters applied, because I have done that in the past, comparing things that are filtered. All right, so 245, 91 during this time range. Let's see if we got all the times. We don't have the 31st yet because it either ran, didn't run to the 31st or whatever. So let's just use the 30th. Make sure we're comparing apples to apples. I guess that's a game. So here we have BigQuery. We've got these different fields here. Everything should be working as expected. We should be able to click on YouTube, just see our YouTube traffic that's actually cleaned up here. Love it. Because it is Analytics Canvas, it does take a little bit longer than BigQuery with BI Engine, but hey, it's okay. So YouTube let's undo this. Let's do Apple 245, 91, 83, 5. Let's go check in the native connector, 245, 91. Problem with the native connector is that you hit the quota error, so we can't see. Let's try refresh this and just see if this makes a difference. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Let's try refresh the data. Sometimes that helps because it helps, sometimes it does not. And okay, so that's just being dumb. We can't do much with that. Let's check the GA4 API. So this is, again, using the API. Cheatsheet 256.95, pretty close, pretty close. And then we have the GA4 2-minute reports, which is taking a second longer. So here you can see how things are. 261.97, so a little bit more optimistic there. And just to compare one last time, we've got whatever this shows up with. 245.91. So we're off by what, a few percentages there. Overall, not terrible, but not the best. So there you go, guys. Oh, wait, oh, we're missing the 31st. That's why. Guys, we might have just solved all our problems here. Let me just check one more time. Here we go. And 245.91 should be the same. And let's just check here with the 30th. So January 4th through January 30th. And here we go. Well, this is one of the reasons, folks, why you want to use tools that you know how they're done. While that's loading, we're going to go check Mixed Analytics because that works. 245.91. Hey, that's like spot on. 245.91. Wow! So the API lines up directly with BigQuery. What a overall success. All right. This report is linked down below. Let me know guys if you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, thoughts, or feelings. I'll see you in the next one.